Hello.
Hi. In the last segment, Ray noted the royal we, where Russell and maybe some of his fellow writers, if there were such in those early days, were consistently using the word we as if they're talking for a collective, when the actual fact is, as Ray notes here, Russell is alone. He is the Watchtower. So
he's the recognized pastor, and he's in charge of everything.
So to try to make it as if there's somebody else in the we, other than Russell himself, in total control of most of what is published, that is the editor, as well as the pastor, as opposed to one of several elders or pastors. Ray goes on talking about that subterfuge, really, to get around the fact that you're talking about yourself. It must be remembered that the Watchtower was Russell's own magazine. He started it, he controlled it, he determined what went into it as its sole editor. It was essentially a vehicle for his writings. Previous to his death, in a last will and testament, he stated that while he had donated the magazine to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, corporation which he also controlled as by far the dominant shareholder, this was done, quote, with the explicit understanding that I should have full control of all the interests of these publications during my lifetime, and that after my decease they should be conducted according to my wishes, end of quote. So when he speaks of attitudes toward the magazine or the society, or applies the term channel to the society or the magazine, he's actually referring these things to himself in the most personal sense. The entire context of the article confirms this. That he was the only one recognized as pastor adds force to this application. He had earlier referred to himself as God's mouthpiece and agent for revealing truth. So when he speaks of the one channel through which persons, that is his friends, had received their enlightenment, he clearly means the writings of Charles Taze Russell. He shows this also by saying that, quote, it would be the privilege of others, of the Lord's faithful ones, to be fellow servants or co-laborers, end of quote, with this, quote, one special channel, unquote, chosen by the Lord.
That this is so is clearly evident from statement after statement appearing in the Watchtower magazine in the years following Russell's death, giving a totally different picture from the very slanted version modern Watchtower material presents. The March 1st, 1923 Watchtower quotes Russell as saying that some spoke of him as the faithful and wise servant, and others spoke of the society as such. The magazine then adds, quote, both statements were true, for Brother Russell was in fact the society in the most absolute sense, in this that he directed the policy and course of the society without regard to any other person on earth. In fact, a biographical issue of the Watchtower, published after his death on October 16, 1916, stated, quote, thousands of the readers of Pastor Russell's writings believe that he filled the office of that faithful and wise servant, and that his great work was giving to the household of faith meat in due season. His modesty and humility precluded him from openly claiming this title, but he admitted as much in private conversation.
Of those classed as opponents to his being that servant used as God's channel, in the October 1, 1909 Watchtower, referred to, Russell represents them as saying, quote, our opponents are often bitter and sarcastic after taking the antagonistic position. They retort that the expression, that servant, should be understood to mean all the members of the Church of Christ, and that the expression, his fellow servants, is meaningless because it refers to the same class. They declare that although it is true that they got their first enlightenment respecting the value of Christ's death as a ransom for all, and their first knowledge of the times of restitution of all things, and their first appreciation of the high calling, and their first knowledge of the parousia and the harvest time of this age, and their first knowledge of the fulfillment of prophecies in connection with this harvest time, and their first understanding of the nature of man, and the work of redemption, atonement, and regeneration from this society's publications. Nevertheless, they are of the opinion that all of these things were previously published by others, and that they are seeking to find the books. They claim further that to apply this scripture to us, meaning Russell of course, would signify that we, meaning Russell, are infallible. Goes on, the quote goes on, but retort the opponents, while we do not deny the service rendered, yet if we grant the application, the Matthew 24:45, to be correct, then we are forced to apply the other part, the context, which says, verily I say unto you, he shall make him ruler over all his goods. That would mean that the fellow servants and the household of faith in general might not expect to receive their spiritual meat from any other quarter than that servant. We are opposed to this thought, and hence opposed to the entire matter.
Then we go back to Ray. Note that those he calls opponents then took the same position that the Watchtower Society today upholds, namely that the faithful and wise servant should be understood to mean all the members of the Church of Christ, not one man. To view Russell as that servant and call all others his fellow servants was therefore meaningless, since they were all part of that servant. They saw a clear danger in looking to any human source as the sole channel through which to receive truth and understanding. In Russell's eyes, to question in such way the special relationship with the Lord which his holding the position of that servant and of being the chosen channel implied, was being antagonistic and making bitter and sarcastic expressions. All of this has a very familiar ring.
So, yeah, here's another case of the, what's the expression? The pot calling the kettle black?
Yeah.
Talking about the opponents, that is, being sarcastic and critical.
Yeah, but
when you yourself resort to this kind of sarcasm about what amounts to, you got it all from me.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
And so...
And now things have changed somewhat about the FDS now. But they still, more or less, are saying now the governing body is the FDS, right?
Yeah.
So they, although it's not a single person, it's a single group. So it's still a control factor here. Yeah.
So they've moved really, what is it, 3 times now? I can't keep count, because the opponents here are saying, no, the faithful servant is in fact a collective. He's saying, no, it's me. And they're saying, no. In effect, what's happened, because the Watchtower then moves to, no, it's not Russell. It is a collective.
It is a collective.
But it's the entire 144,000. Now it's not. We're back to the Watchtower again. The society is...
Yeah.
The society, the governing body, is the faithful slave. So that, what's it, triple move here, all the time moving away from what was self-evident in Russell's earlier day, that they had the right idea that no one man can, and is chosen to, be the sole source of truth on the earth.
Yeah. The only man who might be given that claim is Christ.
Yeah. And in the next segment, where Ray goes on analyzing how this unbelievable reversal became possible as the channel idea took root, and all the impressions and interpretations of Scripture come through present truth, i.e. not Russell anymore. Only the present organization has the truth. The New Light doctrine, in fact, makes room for that constant movement of position, even double reversals.
Yeah.
So Ray talks about that more in the next segment, quoting directly from Watchtower publications over the years to show that this change actually occurred within 25 years from the first book of Russell, The Divine Plan of the Ages, in 1886 to 1910.
Okay.
Next time.